Hello, I'm Dee. I make handcrafted jewelry and I'm going to talk about textures for polymer clay. So there's lots of different objects you can use to texture your clay. You can use pretty much anything that has a texture, from fabrics, bubble wrap, sandpaper, and you can use objects that you find interesting. Little beads, shells, that's jewelry, perfume bottle, toys. There's lots of different things you can use. You can even use this, which is an embossing card. It's made for making cards and for working on paper, leaving texture on paper, but you can use it on the clay as well. There are two ways that you can use all this material. The obvious one is to imprint, is to press the clay onto your texture and then peel it out, and you have textured clay. That's pretty easy. You can do the same thing with any of these objects that you want. Push it in, peel it off, texture. Easy enough. The other option is to make molds out of your objects, so you can get a duplicate instead of the negative image. You push your clay into the mold, and when you pull it out, you have a duplicate object. Then there's all sorts of little things you can use as tools, like bead caps and even nails and screws and things from your toolbox. And these are good especially to make patterns, you know, because you can repeat the process. Let me get this out of here. Clear the area. So you can get your clay and your little tool, and you keep pushing it in and making a pattern. You can do it with all sorts of different objects. And you can even use one texture on top of another, so you can maybe put this on top of your clay first and roll it. And you get that, basically. And then choose maybe a little flower pattern to put on top, or there's all sorts of variations that you can do. So one thing I wanted to talk about is that sometimes you get a nice object with an interesting texture, but for example, this has all these raised dots, but it's a round object, so it's not very practical to apply it directly onto the clay because you have to roll it about. And if you wanted something in a straight line, or if you wanted to make more than just one line, you know, maybe side by side, it may leave a gap, or it may not, maybe it won't go completely straight. So what I do in these cases is to make an impression onto this, which is a Fimo air dry clay. And I do what I did here, which is roll it up onto the clay, but this, and then let it dry, and you get a straight impression of your texture. And then you can apply it to your clay, or you can put the clay on top of it, which is what I normally like to do. And you get the raised dots texture on your clay. Since it's already trimmed to the size of the texture, it's usually easier to make a textured sheet out of this. Certainly easier than to keep rolling around the curved object. I can repeat the pattern as many times as you want. So if you have like a cylinder bead or something like that, you can do the exact same thing. You get your air dry clay, you roll it up, stretch it out, and then push the bead on, roll it up. And you can do this as many times as you want until you get it perfect. Something that's not, you know, this is a bit twisted, as you can see, so I can just scrape it up and do it again if I want to remove these lines and these squiggly bits. And only when it's perfect will I let it dry and then apply onto the polymer clay. If you did it directly, rolling the bead onto the clay, then you'd have to keep redoing your polymer clay sheet, because if you keep making mistakes on the texture, then it doesn't look right in the end. Like this, you make the impression first, and then you just apply it onto the clay. It makes it a lot tidier. So that's it for now. I hope it was helpful. If you want to see any of my jewelry, you can check out stuffersquares.com. And that's it for now.